Man, any of you who are Durin fans is really on a roller coaster because all the changes has been made towards him in the past couple of weeks is absolutely insane. From the first beta to the pretty big nerf in version 2 and now it's version 3. So we have a bit of an update information regarding Durin and Jahoda, which we will be looking in today's video and see how good of a character he is at the current point in the beta. Now we still have a couple of weeks away before he is officially announced and arrive in Luna 3rd. But I still hopefully this is one of the few last big changes to Durin, as the version 3 at the current point looks pretty good. Never, as well as so many other amazing Not Cry character is going to be coming soon, and I know that many of you are trying to get them. So if you're planning to swipe for pooling, then don't forget to check out U7buy. If you know me, I always recommend you guys the best deals for your Genshin top-ups, and with a U7buy you can save up to a 25% on all of your top-up. With a 4.7 rating and over 40,000 positive reviews on Trustpilot, you can be sure U7buy is trustworthy. Here you can see me doing a top-up where I'll be getting 2 Vulcans with a great discount. You just basically need your Genshin UID and server, then voila, your order will be processed instantly. Check out my link in the description and type in my code SUPRA to save an additional 3%, which is a great way to save your money, especially when you're topping up a large amount. Alright, so let's break down some of the buff. First off, we do have a bit of a white mode burst damage increase. Before it was around 410 total motion value. Now it's increased to a 463, which is roughly around a 13% damage increase in his light mode. So yeah, any kind of damage increase again is good. We always love that. Currently, some of the characters that benefits or affects by this, which can be Kinich, Navia, Cloran, Varesa, Wanderer teams. Basically, there can be a couple of other characters as well. Thus, normal attack transmutation is also moved toward his elemental skill. Though before the version 3, normal attack transmutation will have like a separate mechanic. Now it is integrated directly into his elemental skill. So a little bit more easier in terms of gameplay wise. It's more streamlined, can be easier for the player to execute as well, and certainly less clunky whenever you want to switch between his mode. Now one of the better buff regarding this change is toward the burning buff, because the resistant shred passive now also applies to Pyro and Dendro when hitting a burning enemies. Though before, technically Dendro resistant shred is also applied, because what burning reaction is also counted toward the resistant shred, and therefore Dendro is also. However, before, the buff would actually kind of run out or not even start because Durin wasn't the one triggering the burning. So technically speaking, this is more of like an insurance that Dendro resistant shred is always going to be applied when you are playing in a burning team, which is really good because burning reaction has always been almost neglected ever since it was introduced, and still considered to be some of the worst elemental reaction in the game. Maybe with your Durin arrival and this kind of change, burning team, especially alongside with Kinich and Emily, would see better days of usage, because I also enjoy having multiple different kind of team comps. Burning team with Kinich seems nice. Maybe potentially a Nefer burning team would probably arrive as well to give more of a diversity in terms of Never burning reaction team. But hey, we still need a bit more testing to see how well of a team comps that is going to be. Other than that, there are some changes toward the constellation itself, with a C1 buff to give more stack. Before, the white form gave 12 stack, dark form used 2 stack to increase burst damage dealt by 100% of Durin's attack. As for now, white and dark form gives 18 stack and it uses 2 stack to increase burst damage dealt by 200% of Durin's attack. So it's more of a benefit toward the dark form damage, and more stack of course means more buff from the white form as well. C2 changes means that now triggers even when Pyro or Dendro applied on burning enemies, just so that it's like a more corresponded toward his passive. C4 is adjusted a bit, with before a 55% chance to not consume stack after burst. Now the burst damage is increased by 40% and there's a 30% chance to not consume the stack. So overall better value at a C4 level, rather than just like giving you an RNG kind of things after investing so much to a C4. Overall, those are a bit of the buff toward Durin. Now for a bit of context, for recapping a bit of the version 2 nerf was that the supportive, or the white light mode, took a roughly 30% damage reduction back in the version 2 of the beta, which actually nerfed Durin quite a bit, therefore still making characters such as Mavuika more appealing whenever we are looking in the same team when it comes to supportive sub DPS capability between the characters. Whereas now a 13% buff again, while doesn't actually fully recover from the 30% on the version 2 nerf, but while it is still better than nothing, though what this actually means is that Durin is more balanced now, though not as OP as he was in version 1. However, the second version change does allow him to have a better pyro application, so that is also a way to actually balancing out his white mode and dark mode, which is basically the whole point of a beta, to try and adjust the character to not become too overpowered or being a little bit too weak. Though the overall main selling point of Durin still remains the same, with the magic character or Hex and Circle synergy still being required for him to get the maximum benefit of it. Now the changes toward the C1 though may potentially allow his C1 to be more beneficial than his signature currently, in terms of if you're investing in his overall team or damage for Durin himself. But one of the better thing, again as I've mentioned before, from version 3 beta update is the values for Durin within Overload and Burning team comps is going to be a lot better now, therefore allowing him to be again quite competitive toward Mavuika, being whenever you are using her as a sub DPS character, potentially be a very decent side grade when trying to use in the same team as Mavuika before, potentially kind of like a Veresa kind of team. Some of the character that got many of the benefit, like Navia, Kinich, Mulani, potentially Nuvilet, those kind of teams can also work decently well. But again, it's not the main point that we're discussing team comp in this video, as I'm still looking very much in depth into his team comp potential, and we'll make a completely different videos on that topic. Well, for a bit of Jahoda discussion, there has been slight changes to her, not as much as Durin, but she got a bit of a buff towards her E skill, where before her E skill damage was quite a bit lower, though it did have a 17-second cooldown, whereas after the version 3 update it was down to 15 seconds. But overall more E skill damage for her, though the damaging side of Jahoda isn't the most important thing about her, so I don't think that's too much of an important buff. But hey, any kind of damage increase is rather nice. There's also a bit of a Moonsign interaction refinement, where there's a better consistency with Ascended Gleam state for more reliable Purloin Treasure Flask feeling, and also smoother fluffy Melball firing mechanic and better energy regen, which is good because it allows her to have less clunky of a gameplay and more reliable energy regeneration. Overall elemental mastery buffing is one of her also best selling points, still technically stays the same with the 100 EM buff for the character above 70% HP, so that still allows her to be competitive towards characters such as Sucrose in kind of like the same spot within the team. For nerf, there technically wasn't any significant nerf within the version 3 for her directly. Basically, quality of life improvement was the best about Jahoda, so her role still remained basically being the 4-star anemo healer and support, especially for not cry character, especially at a C6 level, without crit rate and 40% crit damage increase, which is good. Elemental infusion specialist as well as the EM buff for your team, and that overall is a nice thing about Jahoda, making her still one of the best supportive character for not cry teammates whenever Lunar 3rd patch arrive, so that is good. Now a bit of team building discussion regarding after the version 3 changes, as Durin now was a lot closer to version 1 potential rather than back in the version 2 with his nerf, right? So some of the best team out there potentially, like a Navia, Albedo, Bennett and Durin team, still one of the best updated Navia team. For her specifically, Kinich, as we have mentioned, with his burning team. Well, if you don't have any other good magic character, then Xiangling is still fine, but to get the most out of Durin magic character, you're such as Venti. You do have a C2 Klee, I think that's one of the best burning team you can run alongside with Kinish, Durin, and Emily. I think those are nice. If you still want to use Bolani, you can have him on her team, or an overload Cloran team such as Cloran, Fischl, Charus, and Durin. Still technically one of the best overload team out there that you can have. Other team comps such as Novelet team, Yoimiya overload, you still want to use her that way. Veressa team potentially is going to have a good Durin to be the side grade characters we've discussed compared to a Mavuika. However, teams such as Alakino, Hutao, Risley, Mavuika still technically going to be better. But again, at the current point, the team comps are all speculation regarding the information from the beta, so the team can change as we move closer toward his official release. Now, for a bit of a comparison toward the character within the same role for Durin and Mavuika, technically speaking, I've already posted a video yesterday talking about Durin versus Mavuika and Xiangling, and I've also mentioned that even after the version 3 beta release, the point I make in that video still stays the same for Durin. Comparison with Mavuika, after the change, Durin's a lot closer to Mavuika now, though most of the time, Mavuika still works really well within Veressa, Wanderer, pure burst damage kind of teams, and she also is quite flexible when it comes to sub DPS and supportive capability, unlike her DPS role, whereas Durin still wants magic or the Hexen so-called character, but whenever he is being used in those kind of teams, it is really good. And other than that, he does have permanent uptime and quite easier rotations to work around with. So the good side at the current point is Durin is quite closer to what Mavuika potential, which is rather nice since Mavuika is still one of the best characters in the game. However though, when it comes to Durin versus Xiangling, Xiangling is still very good with power application, after all with the no internal cooldown, and better yet, she is still the overall best free-to-play character that most of us have access to. So honestly speaking, I still prefer Xiangling in most cases, but well, you still can have both Xiangling and Durin on your account, and they will be able to be on separate teams to do really well. For Jahoda and Sucrose, as we discussed before, they are in very much the same situation. Still though, Sucrose, the overall best versatility when it comes to team building, technically works in most of the team comps that wants a Nemo supportive character and EM scaling. With Jahoda, I think she's still just going to be shining in not cry teams until there is a better supportive character that actually comes. So my final thoughts on the changes between Durin and Jahoda at the current point. For Durin especially, his power level is currently around an A tier level, in opposed to an S tier level back in his version 1, though better than version 2, so that is nice. Pretty good overall value, though again he's a 5-star, so not too free-to-play player friendly, but he does have quite good future proofing because of the Hexen so-called character that is basically coming in the future. Almost a guarantee that he is going to be a must-have on those kind of character team to pull out the best potential for them. So if you are into Durin himself or potentially pulling for Hexen Circle character in the future, Durin value is really high. And Jahoda, I'd say a solid 4-star, B+ tier. However, a roughly S- tier for not cry specific team comp whenever she is released, especially if you have more of a constellation through a C6 kind of level, which is, well, overall the V3 changes actually makes both character more balanced, and I think I kind of like that. But still, once again, do consider hard before you make your decision in terms of pulling for these character, because Columbina, other really good character, are going to be coming in the future, and of course, Durin is going to be having his rerun down the line. I'm pretty sure not too long after, like 2 to 3 patches after. So I would still say that he's not a must pull whenever he arrives, and better yet, wait for more information regarding the character that you truly enjoy to make a better decision then. Which is why, well, if you're new to the channel guys, don't forget to subscribe, because I'll be covering many of those characters to help you guys out in the future. I hope you guys enjoyed the video and found it helpful. If you have any questions or discussion, leave it down in the comment section, and I or some other lovely Genshin player will get to you there. With that, I wish you a super day, and I'll catch you on my next video.